योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणं सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिं गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर् गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः हरिः ओम्. So in the previous session, we have looked at Sutra 4.21 and which was cittaṃ draṣṭṛdṛśye buddhi buddhehe atiprasaṅgah smriti sankarascha. So it was a bit of an involved sutra and bhashya that was covered as part of 4.21. But at the end of the bhashya, it was established that it is the Purusha alone which is the experiencer and the Swami of the Chitta. So towards the end of the Bhashya we said Sankhya Yogadayastu Pravadaha. Those are the right points of view of the Sankhya and the Yoga, etc. Svashabdena Purusham Eva Swaminam Chittasya Bhoktaram Upayanti iti. So by the term Sva, they refer to the Purusha, which is the Swami of the Chitta, and the Bhoktaram, the experiencer of the Chitta. So this had come about from an analysis of other points of view, which we had covered last time. So we won't go into that today. So then the natural question that arises is Katham. Katham meaning in what way? In what way is this Purusha the experiencer of the Chitta? So okay, we may say that okay, the Chitta, we had seen criticisms of a Kshanikava, the momentary sequence of Chittas, or the world is not real but everything is created by the mind, the Shunyavada, there is nothing, etc. And we had seen the arguments against that and finally established that okay, there is an eternal entity, the Purusha, which is the experiencer of the Chitta. So now the further question is okay, in what way is it the experiencer? So Vyasa says Katham. And then comes the Sutra 4.22. So the Sutra says citerapratisaṅkramāyāstadākārāpattau svabuddhisaṃvedanam. So here the mechanism of the knowing, the seeing or the experiencing is being dealt with. So the Sutra says, first term, we'll see term by term, chitehe. So here the term is chiti. So we have seen chiti shakti. So usually translated as consciousness or sentience. So this chiti shakti is a term used for the Purusha. One that has the ability to know, one that has the ability to see, one that has the ability to experience. That is the Chitti Shakti. Now, what is the nature of this Chitti Shakti? It is apratisaṅkrama. So, apratisaṅkrama means it does not have sancharaha, it doesn't move about, it doesn't change. So, this kind of apratisaṅkrama chitti. Now, with respect to that, it is said, tadākārāpattau. Now, what is this tat? Tat is a pronoun, and here it refers to the state of the chitta. Akarapattau means on the arrival of that form of that citta. So in that state, okay. So in some way, the form of the citta, so to speak, falls upon or is reflected on or is echoed with respect to the Chitti Shakti. And this Chitti Shakti is apratisaṅkrama, unchanging, unmoving, etc. So when this happens, svabuddhisaṃvedanam, it is the experiencing or the knowing, because the term vid from which the Veda comes is about knowing. The knowing of its own buddhi happens. So this is the mechanism by which the Purusha is said to know. What does it know? Its Nitya Vishaya is the buddhi. So whatever is presented to it by the Chitta is known by the Purusha. The ability to know, okay, the knowerness, the experiencerness, the seerness lies within the Purusha. How does it happen? It is by the tadakārāpatti, which we will see shortly. So it is as though the Chitta, it is a material entity, it is an instrument, it is colored by objects of the world through the functioning of the Indriyas, and it is said to take the form of those objects, and thereby it is, so to speak, presented to the Purusha. And when that form falls upon the Purusha or is reflected, etc., that is when the svabuddhisaṃvedanam happens. So here, the separation of the knower from the known and the process of knowing is being covered. So that is Sutra 4.22.
So the momentarists or the Kshanikavadins, Vijnanavadins that we considered in the previous sutras, they postulate a continuum and flow of subjective entity, which is Chitta. Because they do not posit anything like Purusha Tattva, Atma Tattva, the Chitta itself is in a flow. Moment to moment it is flowing. And that's how it registers the experiences in the belt of time, and therefore it is a moving entity. The subjective entity in those panpsyches is a moving entity, movable entity. So it is moving from moment to moment, moment to moment, days to days, weeks to weeks, months to months, years to years, decades to decades. So it is flowing. It is eternally flowing. Life to life, it is flowing. Life after life, it is flowing. It is constant flow. And therefore, it is a flowing entity like a river. River flows continuously. So, that is their position. Now, Patanjali here, at the very outset, in this sutra says, apratisaṅkrama. It doesn't move. This is a great kind of counterpoint. That if you posit that it is always in a flow, Patanjali says, apratisaṅkrama. So that's an important predicate. But then, how does it know the Chitta? Tadākārāpattau. The Chitta, we have seen in Vritti Sarupya Sutra how it happens. So the Purusha entity, Atma entity is not moving. This is an important thing. In a mundane world, this cannot be experienced and we cannot be believing in it. Atma is Vibhu Tattva, Purusha is Vibhu Tattva, and it doesn't move. It's something metaphysical, and we on the mundane plane will never have revelation of it. And we will feel it other way around, that I am going from stages to stages in my life. From infanthood to childhood to teenage to youth to adulthood, etc. So we are moving. So the metaphysics tells us that it is not that. But then how does the knowledge proceed? The flow of knowledge is because of tadākārāpattau. is a wonderful postulation. So it's a very interesting topic that is coming up. Okay.
So let's look at the Bhashya. So Vyasa says, Aparinaminihi bhoktru shaktihi apratisaṅkrama. So this bhoktru shakti, which is the experiencer, is aparinamini, unchanging, and apratisaṅkrama, unmoving. So about this, parinamini arthe pratisaṅkranta iva tad vrittim anupatati. So in the parinamini arthe, so which means in that which is changing or which can change, which refers to the citta. Pratisaṅkranta iva, as though it is moving, it falls upon that citta. So in a sense, the bhoktru shakti, the shakti that is the experiencer, it influences or it falls upon the citta which is changing, and having fallen upon that, it is as though it is able to change. The bhoktru shakti, pratisaṅkranta iva, so as though it is able to move. It reaches the citta and then it takes the shape or the form that the citta has. Okay. So for example, if I'm sitting on a chair and my reflection is seen in the mirror, I did not have to go to the mirror for my reflection to take place. I can remain sitting on the chair and the reflection happened. In a not as exact but somewhat similar analogy, the bhoktru shakti did not have to move about, so it is apratisaṅkranta, but having fallen on the citta, it is pratisaṅkranta iva, as though it can change. Now another analogy one could say is the moon is steady, but its reflection falls into water that has ripples. Now the reflection on the moon in the water, the moon seems to be moving along with the ripples. So the moon itself is steady, but the reflection is moving, so it is pratisaṅkranta iva, as though it is moving when reflected on a substance that is ever moving. Now similarly, this bhoktru shakti, when it falls upon the citta, it becomes as though it can move and it takes the form and shape. So tad vrittim. So we have seen in the first chapter, vrittisārupyam itaratra. So it is as though it takes upon the shape of the vritti or shape of the citta at the time. Now, tasyāscha prāpta chaitanya upagraha swarupāyāha buddhivrittehe. So now, talking about this buddhivritti, what kind of buddhivritti? The one that has attained chaitanyam. So it is almost as though it has attained some kind of sentience or consciousness because of the influence of the bhoktru shakti that has fallen upon it. That is why it is said prapta chaitanya. It is not a chaitana substance. It is jada. So it is a material entity. It does not have consciousness or sentience. But due to the influence of the bhoktru shakti or the purusha, it behaves as though it has obtained some sentience. So with respect to this buddhi, vritti, which is Upagraha Swarupa. Upagraha means, let's say, satellite. As though it is like a satellite that has obtained that influence or the power from the Purusha. Then Anukarya Matrataya Buddhi Vritti Avishishtahi Jnana Vrittihi Akhyayate. So the buddhi has taken some shape and form as part of a perception. So let's say it looked at a flower, the indriyas have propagated that information about the flower, that has become the alambanam of the chitta. So chitta has, so to speak, as part of perception, taken the shape and form of that flower. Now the influence of the buddhi, of the purusha, has given a so-called chaitanya. So the purusha also is that influence, let's call it a reflection of the purusha. Now that reflection also takes the same form that the chitta has taken, in this case of the flower. So it becomes buddhi vritti avishishta. It is no different from the shape and form or state that the buddhi itself has. So this particular thing is known as jnana vritti. So this is the jnana vritti. So again, just to explain a little bit. So let's say one looks at a flower, then that information flows to the indriya pranali, through the eyes, etc. So the indriyas, which is actually, it is a part of the antakarana bhedaha. The indriya is not the physical eye, it is that part of the inner instrument, which is the chitta, that is functions as reaching out to the world. So through that impressions of the flower in terms of rupa primarily, but shabda sparsha rupa rasa gandha in general, those impressions fall upon the chitta, and as part of the perception, chitta takes that form of the flower. The flower in Sanskritam is called pushpam. So let's say that because that instrument, that is the chitta, takes the shape, it is, so to speak, it says pushpam. So it has taken the shape and the representation of pushpam. So the chitta is, so to speak, it is saying pushpam. At the same time, the influence of the purusha has fallen upon the chitta, and the influence of the purusha is that of the knower, the seer. So the influence of the purusha brings in the aspect that says, I know, aham janami. So that aspect is not coming from the flower. That aspect is coming from the purusha. So the aham janami coming from the I know, that is coming from the purusha's influence, and the pushpam or the flower that is coming from the flower's influence come together so that the chitta can take the form pushpam aham janami. This is I know the flower. So that is the bodha, the understanding that takes place. So the I know part of it, aham janami part of it, which is in the shape of the chitta, that is the flower, is the jnana vrittihi. And the pushpam part of it, which is the chitta as the flower, without the mixing of the I know, that is known as the buddhi vrittihi. So there is a buddhi vritti and the jnana vritti. And here Vyasa is saying the jnana vritti is that aspect of the chitta that has obtained the influence of the purusha to become the knower, as it were, and then that knowership that has fallen on the chitta takes the same form that the chitta has, which in this our example is the flower, and that form of the knower at that state is known as jnana vrittihi, and therefore the resultant cognition is pushpam aham janami, I know the flower. So that is the mechanism, because this is how the sutra began. Katham, how is this purusha the Bhoktru Shakti, how is it is the Bhokta, how is it the experiencer? So this is how it is the experiencer. So that is what has been explained by this notion of Buddhi Vritti and Jnana Vritti in this line.
So it is intriguing to believe that Purusha Sattva doesn't move, because we get to feel like we say, I am on the move. So we refer to subjective entity and we say, I am on the move, and we think we are always on the move and we can be on the move and we move. But the metaphysicists have something else to tell us, and they emphatically say it is apratisaṅkrama, but then seems to be sankramita, immovable but seems to be moving. Now this is also described with a wonderful example that we come across in our life. Say, suppose you are sitting in a train and it is stationary on a track, and there is an adjacent track and there is another train stationary on that track. Now when that train is commencing to move, we get the feeling that our train is moving. So something like optical illusion, we get this feeling our train is still stationary, but the train on the neighboring track starts to move, and we get the feeling that our train is moving. We get the feeling, but then we can confirm that our train is still stationary, but the adjacent train is moving. Another example is that when you are traveling in a train or a vehicle, you get the feeling when you look out in the window, you feel that the trees are running backwards. The mountains are running, mountain range is running backwards, the trees are running backwards. Now the trees don't move, but they seem to be moving. The mountains don't move, but or the land, the surrounding scenery doesn't move, but it seems to be moving. So similarly here, we don't move, the time is moving. The time is moving, the matter is running, matter is moving, it is a fleeting flux. So the matter is on the move and we think we are on the move. And metaphysicists tell us here that apratisaṅkrama, no, that entity is apratisaṅkramita, apratisaṅkrama, it doesn't move. When it seems to be moving, this is because of vritti sarupyam, because the seemingly Purusha entity, which is citta, that is like iron ball becoming fireball in the fire. Now it is iron ball, black, opaque, solid, but when it is kept in a fire for a long duration, it appears to be fireball, it becomes fireball, it is translucent, not black at all, but red. Otherwise the iron ball is black, but the fireball is red. So as long as it is in the fire, it will seem to be fireball. Similarly, the citta, which is insentient, which is inert, because of the proximity with the Purusha, it becomes seemingly conscious. That is called bhasamana chaitanyam. And the bhasamana chaitanyam gets a feeling of movement. That moves from incarnation to incarnation, it transmigrates. So Atma, metaphysical entity, doesn't transmigrate, but this seemingly conscious principle is in movement. And that is why we feel that we are in movement, because there is that ditto identification by vritti sarupyam, which we have considered earlier on an earlier occasion. Another example is that suppose there is an empty pot, and in an empty pot there is invariably space. Now the pot is moving, we think the space is moving. Space in the pot is moving. The space in the pot really doesn't move because space is all pervasive. There is no movement in principles, elements such as space But because the pot is moving from location to location, we deem that the space in the pot is also moving from location to location. But the space is immovable. It is because it is absolutely all pervasive, vibhu. So it has no place to move. So how can it move? But it seems to be moving because it is in the delimitation of a pot. So similarly, our Atma, which is in the delimitation of the psychic consciousness, it seems to be moving. So, like optical illusions, or another example is that suppose there is a disc painted with 7 colors, and when it is rotated fast, it appears to be white. It doesn't show those 7 colors and different colors. It appears to be white while it is not white. There are colors in it. So similar is the case here. We think our subjective entity metaphysically is a movable entity. It moves from moment to moment, day to day, year to year, decade to decade, century to century, life to life. But it doesn't move. It seems to be moving because of the bhasamana chaitanya which chitta becomes. And just now you heard about the jnana vritti. So similarly, it is taken that the jnana of the chitta is the jnana of the purusha. And therefore there are the paurusheya jnana and vrittyatmak jnana, which is described in the psychology of yoga. And we have dealt with it earlier. So metaphysicists are giving a revelation which otherwise won't occur to our mind, basically aprasakrama and tadākārāpattau, tadākārāpatti, that there is like moon reflects in the water. It's a reflection. Similarly, there is this chittāṃ also discussed earlier. So that tells us about how this, and metaphysicists are giving this revelation, and which counters the stand of the panpsychists, which we considered in the previous sutras. Okay.
Okay, so continuing the Bhashya, Vyasa refers to another verse. It says, Tatha cha uktam. So therefore it is said, Na pātālam na cha vivaram girīnām, naivandhakaram kukshayo nodadīnām, guhāyasyām nihitam brahma shāshvatam, buddhivrittim avishishtam kavayo vedayante. So, where does the Brahma Shashvatam, which refers to the pure Purusha Tattva, where does it reside? Because it is said, Nihitam Guhayam, it resides hidden in a cave. So what is this cave? Where is it? Which is Na Pātālam Na cha Vivaram Girinam. It is not the lower worlds. Pātālam means there is this conception of worlds below, as it is said, nether worlds. So those nether regions of Pātala, that is not where it is. Nacha Vivaram Girinam, it is not in the mountain caves. Naivandhakaram, so it is not in darkness. Kukshayo nodadinam, nor in the hidden cavities deep under the sea. Guhayasyam nihitam brahma shashvatam, the cave in which this eternal, pure Brahma, which is the Purusha Tattva, resides. Buddhivrittim avishishtam kavayo vedayanti. The wise, the rishis, the seers, they tell us that it is nothing but the avishishta buddhivritti, which we just saw. That part of the buddhi which has received the chaitanyam from the Purusha, that is where it resides, and that is where it can be cognized. So this is also something that we have seen before. Even in the samadhi avastha, it is never sampragnata samadhi or viveka khyati, etc. It is not as though the chitta sees the Purusha. That never happens. It is still looking at the influence of the Purusha on itself. That gets known, that is realized. So buddhi vrittim avishishtam is non-different from the state of the buddhi. That particular influence that has fallen, that is where the Brahma Shashvatam, the Purusha Tattva, is hidden and can be reached. So that is the Vyasa invokes or brings about these lines here to further make it more firm in our understanding that this is what is happening, the Chaitanya falling upon the Buddhi. So that's the Bhashya of 4.22.
So Vyasa is quoting Krantadarshi Kavi. Kavi means one who is Krantadarshi, means one who is able to see the truth, which is not possible for you and me mortals. And therefore, the postulation here is mysterious. It tells us about the mysticism with regards to Purusha Tattva. So it's a combination of metaphysics and mysticism. And so that clearly postulates the wiser ones, called Krantadarshi Kavi, the truth seeking or truth seers, the truth realized Kavis tell us about it, that it is as it is postulated in the Sutra, that it is nowhere to be found a particular location, etc., which we think that it is spatialized. But it is not that. It is all pervasive. And that's the aspect of mysticism which comes in postulation of the spiritual entity of Purusha. Okay.
Now we move on to 4.23. So Vyasa begins by saying, Atascha etad abhyapagamyate. So this is how it is understood and accepted. How is that? Comes Sutra 4.23. draṣṭṛdṛśyoparaktaṃ cittaṃ sarvārtham. The citta that is colored by the draṣṭṛ, which is the seer, and the drishya, which is the seeable or the seen. Colored by both of these, the citta is sarvārtham. Sarvārtham means everything can be the vishaya of it. It can cognize, perceive everything. So this citta is sarvārtham because it is influenced by both the seer category, or the seer and the seen, anything in the seen category, anything that can be seen, that is drishya. So the draṣṭṛ refers to the Purusha, drishya refers to what we call the prakriti category, all the evolutes of prakriti. So draṣṭṛdṛśyoparaktaṃ cittaṃ sarvārtham. That is Sutra 4.23. So now we look at the Bhashya. Vyasa begins by saying, Manohi mantavyena arthena uparaktam. So the manas is colored by the mantavyartha, whatever is the subject of the mind or the citta, whatever it is colored by that, just like our example of the flowers. Or it can be, if it's not a direct perception, it can be a memory, smriti, it can be anything else. But by that it is colored. Tat svayam cha vishayatvat vishayna purushena atmiyaya vritya avisambaddham. So this manas by itself, see, it is colored by the mantavya. But the manas itself, or the chitta itself, because it is also a vishaya, it is also a knowable for the Purusha. So who is, if the chitta is the vishaya or the knowable, who is the knower? It is Purusha. So tatsvayam cha vishayatvat vishayina purushena, by the Purusha who is the vishayi or the one who knows. Atmiyaya vritya abhisambaddham. It is closely related to the Purusha by that Atmiyaya vritti that we just saw, the influence of the Purusha on the chitta through which the knowledge process happens, etc. So by that vritti, it is closely related, abhisambadham. Tat etat cittam eva draṣṭṛdṛśyoparaktaṃ विषय विषयनिर्भासम चेतना चेतन स्वरूपापन्नम. Okay, so now what is the nature of the chitta? This chitta itself is draṣṭṛdṛśyoparaktaṃ, influenced by the drashta, which is the seer, and the drishya, which is the seen category. So influenced by both or colored by both. draṣṭṛdṛśyoparaktaṃ. Okay, what else about the chitta? Vishaya Vishayi Nirbhasam. So it shines in the form of the Vishaya. It is just like we saw the Vishaya, if it is a flower, it is shining in the form of the flower, or it appears. At the same time, also in the form of the Vishayi, because it also appears in the shape of the knower of the flower. So the Vishaya and the Vishayi both are factored in the form in which it shines or appears. Chetana Chetana Swarupapannam. So it gets the form of being a Chetana, because the influence of the Purusha has as though lent its power to it. So as though seemingly conscious. So that is Chetana. And Achetana, because by nature actually it is Achetana. It is not a conscious entity. It is just an instrument. So Chetana Chetana Swarupapannam. So there are these three adjectives or describing words for chitta. draṣṭṛdṛśyoparaktaṃ, Vishaya Vishayi Nirbhasam, Chetana Chetana Swarupapannam. Vishayatmakam api avishayatmakam iva acetanam chetanam iva sphatikamaணிkalpam sarvārtham ityuchyate. So it is Vishayatmakam, which means it is itself in the knowable category, but still avishayatmakam iva, as though it itself is the knower, and therefore as though it is not a knowable but a knower. Acetanam, which means non-sentient, not conscious, but chetanam iva, as though conscious. Sphatikamaṇikalpam, just like the Sphatikamaṇi. Sphatikamaṇi is a common illustration used in Indian shastras, as in like if you have a mani which is a gem which purely reflects. So if you get a red flower close to it, it appears red, etc. So in this case, Sphatikamaṇikalpam, because on one side the Vishayas are coming in, like the flower, the pot, etc. On the other side, the Purusha is coming in, throwing its influence. So this particular clear crystal, clear gem, is being colored by them. So Sphatikamaṇikalpam. So it is as though the crystal is taking that form. Because of the flower it appears red, because of the Purusha it appears as though it is conscious. So Sphatikamaṇikalpam sarvārtham ityuchyate. So it is known as sarvārtham, because it is as though everything is a possible artha for it. So it can interact, it can reflect everything that there is. So sarvārtham ityuchyate. So tat anena chittasārupyena bhrantaha kechit tadeva chetanam ityahuhu. So because of all this, and because they are deluded by the chittasārupyena, by the fact that the chitta takes the form of the Vishaya and the Vishayi, the knowable and knower, those that are deluded by it, kechit, those think that that itself is Chetanam, that itself is the conscious principle. So here, once again, one of the Buddhist schools is being referred to, which considers the chitta itself as conscious. Apare, okay, there are other people, chittam matram eva idam sarvam. नास्ति खलु अयं गवादिर्घटादिश्च सकारणो लोक iti. So there are others that say everything is chitta alone, everything is coming from the mind. Really speaking, there is no cow, there is no pot, there is nothing, there is simply the mind. There is no loka, the world, it is just the mind projecting itself. So there are others that say that. So there is one set of people who say that the chitta itself is a conscious entity. There is another set of people who says that there is nothing in this world, everything is a chitta alone, which is projecting itself. So there are these people, anukampaniyaha they are more to be pitied. Okay? So we have to have some sympathy for them, says Vyasa. And then he'll explain why that is the case. But so far we have seen why the chitta is said sarvārtham, and why, because of its nature as being appearing sarvārtham, some may be deluded into having wrong conceptions about the chitta and the world.
So, again, a very intriguing aspect divulged here. Like the mind is considered to be a subjective entity, and then we say mind knows the rose, mind knows the cow. So it has its objects, all the empirical objects are, and therefore in relation to the objects, we think the mind is subjective entity. But human psyche consciousness is so constituted that it can also become, it can make the very subjective entity as an object. Like, as we say, I see the rose, I know the cow, I know the fire. At the same time, we also have this perception that I know I am angry, I know I am sad, I know I am disturbed. Who is disturbed? So we refer to that as a subjective entity. So it is draṣṭṛdṛśyoparaktaṃ cittaṃ sarvārtham. The mind can cognize the objects, and mind can cognize itself. So actually mind is cognizing itself as well. Like a mirror will be reflecting, mirror doesn't reflect itself into it. There has to be another mirror for the mirror to be reflected into another mirror. The mirror is reflector, it reflects, but it itself is not reflecting into itself. But here the chitta is both. Draṣṭṛdṛśyoparaktaṃ, draṣyoparaktaṃ, therefore sarvārtham, therefore it is all knower. Now we are used to making an expression mind over matter. This is the expression that we bring in English. We think mind is subjective entity and now is a mind over matter. Mind itself is a matter. Because there is ignorance about metaphysics, the mind itself is considered to be subjective entity or conscious entity, and therefore we say mind over matter. Now mind itself is a matter. So therefore you heard the two examples, two statements made by Vyasa. One is to refute the positions of panpsychists. They think that chitta itself is the self. Chitta itself is a subjective entity. So that's a bhranti. And therefore, like you heard in the Vijnanavada of Buddhism, they said it is all chitta that is knowing. The knowing entity is chitta, the knower entity is chitta. So tat anena chitta sarupyena bhranta. They don't understand it is chitta sarupyam, vritti sarupyam or chidchayapatti, as we had discussed earlier. They do not posit this at all. They don't actually admit the other entity, which we admit as Purusha, Atma Tattva, Chaitanyam. Therefore, they have that bhranti. And the other one is panpsychists who say everything is mind. There are no objects at all. So some people say that there's only objects and the chitta is only cognizer of it, while some people say that there are no objects. The nihilists in Buddhist sect or Shunyavadins, they don't accept the objects at all. They say if the objects are there, it is mind fabrication, chit fabrication, and objects don't exist. So these are the people who do not have acceptance or posit the spiritual entity, Chaitanya Tattvam, Purusha Tattvam, Atma Tattvam. They have a problem because they don't admit it, and therefore we must have pity for them because of their ignorance. So that's how, when Vyasa says we should have pity for them, that means they stand completely refuted. Their stand stands completely refuted. So that's the beautiful part of commentary that we have just now considered, which is refuting the nihilism and panpsychism, Vijnanavada and Shunyavada. And the mind is both. It knows itself and it knows the objects. And mind is capable of also realizing the self. That's why we have concept of self-realization in spiritualism or spirituality or adhyatma. So it can know the knower, it can know the knowable, and therefore the chitta is sarvārtham. So it will be knowing all the three entities in one sense. The knower knowing known, knower knowing knowable. The mind can be objectifying all the three for itself. That's the marvel of this chitta. So it's a marvelous entity, therefore sarvārtham. It can be all knower, all knowing. Okay.
So Vyasa just said, Anukampaniyaha te. So they are to, we should have sympathy for them. Now why is that? Kasmat. Because he says, Asti hi tesham bhranti bijam sarvarupakara nirbhasam chittamiti. He said, okay, there is a valid reason why one may be deluded, why one may be confused. Why? Because there is a bhranti bijam, there is a seed for this confusion. Where, what is that seed? It is the sarvarupakara nirbhasam cittaṃ. Because this chitta, it appears in all forms. It appears as, because of it being influenced by the Purusha, by the Vishayas of the world, it appears in all forms. So it is understandable that one may misinterpret and misconstrue the form of the chitta. Now he continues, he says, Samadhi prajñāyām prajñeyorthaha pratibimbi-bhūtaha tasya ālambane-bhūtatvat anyah. So here is specifically talking about those that believe that this whole creation is a projection of the mind. Nothing really exists. There is no cow, there is no pot. It is just imagination, conceptions of the mind. So for that, he takes recourse to samadhi. In the samadhi prajna, the chitta is perfectly pure. Now, in this state, the prajñeyo arthaha, the alambanam, the dhyaya vastu, which is being known by the samadhi prajna, pratibimbi bhutaha, being reflected, because it has become a support of the chitta, it has to be different. Has to be different from what? From the chitta. Why is that? So in the samadhi prajna, firstly, the chitta is completely purified. And then we also say arthamatra nirbhasa. So the part about I know is withdrawn and the known itself shines. Since it is shining and becoming a support of the chitta, that itself cannot be chitta, it is different from the chitta. But if you don't accept, if you still insist, no, the world is made up of chitta, he says, Sachet artha chitta matram syat. So if you still say, no, this is chittamatram, then katham prajnaya eva prajna rupam avadharyeta. So if you still insist that it is not different from the cow or whatever is being held and being known in samadhi, if you say there is no such cow, how can that happen? And furthermore, how can, if the cow is also a prajna rupam, the samadhi prajna is also a prajna, how can you hold the prajna rupam steady by prajna itself? How can that be explained? Okay, because in general the karta and karma are two different things. So the one that is holding the thing that is held, there are two separate things. So it is anyaha. So katham prajnaya eva prajna rupam avadharyeta. So it is inconsistent. It doesn't fit. Tasmat pratibimbi bhuto arthaha prajnayam yena avadharyate sa purusha iti. So, so essentially what is being said is, specifically in the samadhi state, which is very much the subject matter of yoga and is experienced by the yogi, and the activity of the chitta at that time is restrained. Chitta is not active and doing things, imagining things, seeing things. All of that has been restrained. And yet, there is a artha, which is a support of the chitta. There is a dhyaya vastu, whatever it is, which is the subject matter or the topic of that samadhi. If the chitta is in this state, not functioning, not active, okay, so then in that state, prajnayam, this artha, the thing that is the dhyaya vastu, that has become the support of the chitta, who is it being held steady by? Who is ascertaining it? Okay, who is it being ascertained by? So that is the Purusha. So tasmat pratibimbi bhuto artha. The artha that has been reflected, prajnayam, in the state of samadhi, where the chitta is not in activity at all, then yena avadharate, one who is supporting it, one who is holding it, one who is ascertaining it, sa purusha iti, that is the Purusha. So there's a beautiful explanation that can only come from yoga, because the yoga marga, the yoga thinking is one coming from direct experience. So it is the yogis who have undergone samadhi, who know what is samadhi, and who can take recourse to the state of samadhi to then explain and establish what is the role of Purusha and why, by taking recourse to that particular state, other imaginations like saying the world is not real, it is a projection of the mind, etc., it can be refuted. So there's a beautiful line elsewhere. It says, Pratyaksha hetavo yogaha sankyaha shastra nishchayaha. So there is a slight distinction there being drawn by people involved in yoga and people involved in Sankhya. The Sankhya Shastra Nishchayaha, they are looking at Shastra and forming their Nishchayas. Whereas yoga, they give primacy to experience, Pratyaksha Hetavo. So their own experiences, which here refers to the perception Alaukika Pratyaksha or Sakshatkara, the Pratyaksha that comes in the yogic state. So here, this is an example where the Samadhi state is being used to establish their Siddhanta. So, in the state of Samadhi, the one that is holding the Artha in the Chitta, that cannot be the Chitta itself. And the one that is holding that is the Purusha. Yena avadharyate sa Purushaha iti. And then Vyasa concludes by saying, Evam grihitru grahana graya swarupa chitta bhedat premapi etat jatitaha pravibhajante te samyak darshinaha taihi adigataha purushaha iti. So in conclusion he says that grihitra grahana grahya. So grihitra means a knower, grahana means the knowing process, grahya means the thing that is known. In these three essential aspects, the three swarupas, chitta bheda. Chitta influenced or in these three roles. Trayamapi etat jatitah pravibhajyante. So they say essentially these are different. These are different categories. So jatitah. So seeing this as different categories of the functioning of the chitta or the role of the chitta, te samyak darshinaha. They are the ones who are seeing correctly. Tahi adhigataha purushaha. They have understood the purusha. And therefore, the whole line of reasoning about the Sankhya Yoga conception, and in a broader sense, the Astika conception, and the further detail of how it is to be understood, and why the other points of view of the various conceptions of the Chitta and the world, they are incorrect, etc., has been established. And as part of that, a lot of teaching about the nature of the Chitta, the Purusha, and their quote unquote interaction is also explained. That is for the Bhashya of 4.23.
So it's a quite intriguing and awe-inspiring discussion, actually. If you try to dive into it, it is such a condition that I know rose, but it doesn't stop there. I know what I know that I know. So I know that I know. I know that I know the rose. So this chitta is a marvel. It is so positioned and so constituted, and the yogis with their abilities, with their processes, purifying the chitta to manikalpa, sphatic-like, crystal-like, then they get this grahitru grahana grahya samapattis. Grahitru samanakarata, grahya samanakarata, and grahitru samanakarata. And that's how this chitta is a marvel. And our psyche is really indeed a marvel, because it doesn't only know the world, we also can end up saying, I know that I know. So try to open out that jargon. If it is appearing to be jargon, I know that I know that I do not know. So who is the knower and who is the knowable? Who is the known? When you say I know, that means there is that I know which is representing subjective entity, and I know that I know is representing, there is also representation of the objective entity. So human psyche is a marvel, that it can be very, very intriguing, and it can be confounding, confusing. Just how you heard, the Sankhyas take recourse to the testimony of the Shastras, and Patanjalas tell us that it is a matter of experience, it can be experienced, it is experienceable. So that's little marvel about the chitta. When you dive little deeper into it, then you will realize that you don't just have a mind, you have a marvel. You don't just have a chitta, but it's a marvel. Okay.
Okay, so let's stop here at 4.23. Recite the slokas and Guruji and end the session. Vaijñānikam pravaktrutva आसनेषु कलाविदम् योगाभ्यासे च तत्त्वज्ञम् वन्देऽहं सुन्दरं गुरुम् योगवृक्षो हि लोकेऽस्मिन् यत्प्रेरणेन वर्धितः योगाचार्यगुरो तुभ्यं सुन्दराय नमो नमः. Thank you.
Namaskar all of you.